To call the meeting to order, if we could, please. Vice Chairman Fisher would lead us in the invocation, please, sir.
Let us pray. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for our many blessings. And we give thanks for this area in which we live, the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. And Father, we pray for all those veterans and those that have served to give us liberty and freedom, those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And we also ask for your care and looking over those who are currently serving in our armed services all over the world to protect our freedoms. Be with them and guide and direct them. We also ask for your guidance and direction tonight in our actions and words for the citizens of Frederick County. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
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 Supervisor Lofton, you lead us in the pledge, please, sir.
Would you stand and face the flag for a pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Adoption of the agenda, are there any proposed changes?
Mr. Chairman, I do have one proposed amendment, which is recognition of some 4-H representatives. If we could maybe put that under
1A?
item 1A under
Okay.
county officials.
Okay. All right. How would the board like to handle this?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve is amended, and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda.
We're proposing a change there as well, Mr. Chairman. We had originally proposed to have items C and D on consent. I'd like to pull item C if we could. There's a minor change to that we'll explain when we get to that item, if that's okay with the board.
All right. Would the board like to honor their request?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of the consent agenda, pulling C from it.
Motion to approve is amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Consent agenda as amended is adopted. This is a portion of the meeting. Did anyone sign up, Jay? No one signed up. Board of Supervisors comments, are there any? County officials. Presentation of resolutions of appreciation for retirees with 25 or more years of service with Frederick County. Charles Stephen Fry, would you join us, please, sir?
Steve. Should be seeing him around here.
This one? Very good. Resolution of appreciation for Charles Steve Fry, Frederick County. Whereas Charles Steve Fry served Frederick County, Virginia for approximately 26 years in the Public Works Department. And whereas Charles Steve Fry began his career with Frederick County as a motor equipment operator too, 1990 to 1992. I'll catch up. It was an accident. Acting Shawnee Sanitary District Manager from 2002 to 1993. Shawnee Land Sanitary District Manager from 1993 to 1994. Landfill Manager from 1994 to 2017. And whereas under Charles Steve Fry's management, the landfill became a state-of-the-art facility that is a model facility in the Commonwealth. His safety program yielded 6 consecutive years without a lost time accident. And his leadership and innovation resulted in the gas-to-energy facility that has made the Frederick County landfill a leader in the solid waste disposal industry. And whereas Charles Steve Fry was usually the first to arrive and the last to leave work, and will be remembered for his work ethic, devotion to duty, and his impeccable safety record. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Frederick County Board of Supervisors extends its sincerest thanks to Charles Steve Fry for his dedication and dependability, and wishes him all the best in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Frederick County Board of Supervisors for all citizens to reflect upon the accomplishments of this public service. Adopted this 13th day of September 2017. Carl H. Stidell, would you join us, please? Resolution of appreciation for Battalion Chief Carl H. Stidell, Frederick County. Whereas Carl H. Stidell served the citizens of Frederick County, Virginia for approximately 26 years in the Fire and Rescue Department. And whereas Carl H. Stidell began his career with Frederick County as a firefighter 1, 1991 to 1998, fire and rescue specialist from 1998 till 2001, Fire and Rescue Lieutenant and Fire Marshal, 2001 through 2003. Fire and Rescue Captain, 2003 through 2017. And rising to the rank of Fire and Rescue Battalion Chief in 2017. And whereas during his tenure with the Fire and Rescue Department, Battalion Chief Carl H. Stidell worked with the Communications Committee to develop standard operating procedures guidelines, to standardize equipment and move the department into the future, and assisted with a major radio upgrade, which saved Frederick County $438,000 based upon what a private company would have cost. Whereas Battalion Chief Carl H. Stidell will be remembered for his leadership, work ethic, job knowledge, and as one of the best incident commanders in the department. Now therefore be it resolved that Frederick County Board of Supervisors extends its sincerest thanks to Battalion Chief Carl H. Stidell for his leadership and wishes him all the best in his future endeavors. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread across the minutes of the Frederick County Board of Supervisors for all citizens to reflect upon the accomplishments of this public servant. Adopted this 13th day of September, 2017. Congratulations, well done, sir. Thank you. All right. Brings us to a committee appointments.
No, sir, we have the added item, Mr. Chairman, the
I'm
recognition
sorry,
of the
1A.
4-H
Yes,
folks.
4-H ambassadors. Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much.
It's my privilege tonight to recognize 5 young people that are part of the 4-H program. They're 4-H ambassadors, and if I call your names, could you please come forward and stand so we can get you on camera? Be Brandon McDonald, who's a senior at James Wood High School. Ethan Whitaker, freshman at James Wood High School. Hunter Shoemaker, junior at Sharando High School. Morgan Strickler, senior at Sharando High School. And Cameron Madigan, a senior at Sharando High School. This is quite an accomplishment for Frederick County because these young people represent 5 4-H ambassadors. Brandon, Ethan, and Hunter are ambassadors for shooting, and there are 18 shooting ambassadors in the state of Virginia, and we have 3 of them here. And Morgan and Cameron are 4-H ambassadors for the horsing industry, and there are 12 ambassadors in the state of Virginia representing the horsing industry. To become a 4-H ambassador, these students fill out an application, write an essay, and undergo an interview process. And part of their duties is they engage in public speaking about the benefits and opportunities of the 4-H club. They engage in knowledge contests about their area of expertise, and they serve a 2-year term. So the Extension Service had contacted us and thought this is quite an accomplishment for these folks and a good representation of Frederick County. So we had them here tonight. We wanted to recognize them and let you know what 4-H is doing.
Great, well, congratulations. Well done. Well done. Well done. Great job, great job. Great, great job. Thank you very much. And that will bring us to committee appointments. So Historic Resources Advisory Board, I believe that Supervisor Wells has an application for us to consider.
Yes, sir, I do. Mr. Chairman, I would like to place in nomination the name of Robert Molden. I've known Mr. Molden for many, many years and would like to see him be placed on the Historic Resources Advisory Board for my district.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And the second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Robert Wells and Robbie Molden appointed to the Historic Resources Advisory Board. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Robert.
That brings us to Historic Resources Redbud.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate Scott Straub for the position. He has been a member of the French and Indian War Society. He is responsible for some of the preservation work and restoration work at Fort Loudon. He loves history. He would make a great asset to the board. I move for his nomination to be approved.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, sir. Shawnee District.
Mr. Chairman, I want to defer that for the newly elected member to the Shawnee District, because
Very
that
well.
doesn't expire till May.
Well done. Thank you, sir. Community Policy Management Team, parent representative. Are we attempting to get a
Seeking applicants
recommendation?
for that. We're still seeking applicants for that one, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Economic Development Authority, Frederick County representative. I'm working on that one.
Mr. Chairman, I also am working on that one also.
Excellent.
So I'll coordinate with you.
Great. Well done. Shawnee Land Sanitary District Advisory Committee, are we ready?
No, sir, not ready to make a decision at this time.
All right, sir. Board of Equalization. Understand that Ms. Brumback is willing to continue. How would the board like to handle that one?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we make a recommendation for reappointment to the courts for Mrs. Betsy Brumback to continue as the representative from Frederick County.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And the second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no. Then we'll recommend to the Chief Judge the Circuit Court for her appointment. Frederick County Planning Commission, Stonewall.
I have spoken with Mr. Oates, and he is planning to get back to me on that, sir.
All right, thank you. That's not encouraging. Redbud Planning Commission, are we ready? This is a January appointment.
I'll defer that until
Yes, sir.
December.
Okay. All right, brings us to the end of the list. And that will bring us to Resolution and Performance Agreement with Navy Federal Credit Union.
Mr. Chairman, this is the formal performance agreement that has been discussed with the board. Navy Federal Credit Union is expanding their operation in Frederick County and is committed to making a $100 million investment of building expansions and 1,400 new jobs. And in light of that, the county has offered certain incentives, and what you have before you tonight is the formal resolution approving the conditions of that performance agreement. Mr. Barker, our EDA director, is here if you have specific questions regarding the agreement, or Mr. Williams can probably assist as well.
All right, sir, are there questions for Mr. Barker or Mr. Williams? Okay. Yes, sir.
Would you like a motion?
Surely.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the performance agreement as presented on our agenda.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
A second. Is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. That will bring us to the Transportation Committee.
Item
Mr.
4.
Chairman, we pulled C from the consent.
Or did you want to deal with it separately from the motion that's already been made?
No.
We're on item number 4, tab C.
Yes. We pulled it off the consent. You want to discuss it?
Right.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, please do.
This relates to a memorandum of understanding between the City of Winchester, Frederick County, Clark County, whereby all those localities are supporting the Substance Abuse Coalition. Subsequent to that agreement, the city has agreed to provide space to the coalition. So this addendum provides for that arrangement whereby the coalition would be occupying space in the Timbrook House, which is owned by the city. Because that was not provided for in the original MOU, you have a proposed addendum to that MOU. We originally had placed it on consent, and the county attorney noticed a provision that made him a little uncomfortable, so we have suggested adding language that has been provided and placed before you, referenced as tab C. Basically, what it does is ensures that the financial commitment cap that was provided for in the original MOU covers any expenses that may be associated with the use of this house by the coalition. So by adding that sentence, it gives the assurance that the county's financial commitment does not exceed what was provided for in the grant. So if the board's comfortable, we would propose authorizing us to go ahead and execute the MOU with this modified language. I'm happy to try and answer any questions if you have them.
Is there any questions? Mr. Tierney, anyone?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Supervisor?
the addendum at our stations this evening then would replace item number 7 of the addendum that is in the board packet. Is that correct?
It
It doesn't. It doesn't replace the item. All it does is add that. It would add that.
Additional sentence?
Would be added as number, whatever the next number of it is, number 14.
Okay. Okay, so it's not item, it's paragraph 7, it's what you're addressing then, and it would
Correct.
add a number 14.
It's
Understand.
referencing paragraph
Understand.
7 of the original MOU, not
There
the
you go.
addendum.
Very well. Thank you.
Other questions? Anyone? How would the board like to handle this one?
Make a motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
A motion to approve, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And a second, is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. All right. That, I believe, will bring us to the Transportation Committee. Is that you, Mr. Bishop?
Yes, sir. You have one action item today on your Transportation Committee report, and that revolves around a transfer of secondary funds. Specifically, staff has been working with VDOT to avoid potential loss of secondary funds from our local secondary pool to the state Smart Scale program. In order to accomplish this, the solution that was reached was to transfer those funds to the Redbud Road realignment, which would realign Redbud Road from its current path up to Snowden Bridge Boulevard in keeping with our comprehensive plan. Basic summary of the transfer is the existing funding on Redbud Road is $349,067. We would be transferring funds from Warrior Road placeholder funds, Brucetown Road placeholder funds, and also residual funds from the completed Carter Lane project, which total $462,005, and then the designation of future year allocations of $1,025,815. We are seeking action from the Board of Supervisors on this transfer. With your authorization, the county administrator would be relating this transfer to VDOT staff through either a letter or an email, both suffice. And the Transportation Committee reviewed this item on October 30th and has recommended approval. Staff also recommends approval.
Questions for Mr. Bishop? Anyone? Supervisor Lofton?
Mr. Chairman, if I would, if Mr. Bishop, if you would explain, when we're talking about to avoid the loss of secondary funds to the Smart Scale program.
Yes, sir.
A little detail about, so everyone understands what we're trying to accomplish here and why.
Yes, sir. Basically, for those who may not be familiar, Smart Scale program is the not quite new anymore, but still fairly new program at the state level, whereby localities like ourselves apply for funding to get projects into the 6-year program. It's a competitive process based on many measures. The largest one of those measures for us happens to be economic development. Secondary funds are funds that are targeted to our locality, primarily toward oftentimes the rural roadway network, but by secondary, the secondary system, once again, for those who may not be familiar, is not a roadway such as a Route 11 or Route 37 or obviously an Interstate 81, but they are our Warrior Drives, our Brucetown roads, our Redbud roads, our secondary smaller scale roads, if you will. At the inception of the legislation that adopted Smart Scale, there were a number of phases of, I don't have a better way to put it, so I'll say phases of attack in terms of VDOT working through all of their programs to identify funds for pulling into that central pot from wherever they may be. We've seen it with revenue sharing. We've seen it with a number of different programs. This, according to your staff's understanding, until we get any new information from VDOT, is the last pot of money that VDOT is sort of analyzing and targeting. Of that, they've identified a total of about $350 $350,000, which we termed as subject to sweep. Without moving those funds to an actual project that we can in turn show is fully funded, we aren't able to do anything with those funds and protect them from being moved to the Richmond pot, if you will, at which time we'd have the privilege of trying to fight everybody else in the state to get them back. So through this action, we keep them in Frederick County. We fully fund Redbud Road, which of course is an important road in your comprehensive plan, and move that forward as well.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bishop. I wanted Mr. Bishop to explain that, so people might look and say, well, you're taking funds away from this road or this road, but the understanding that those funds might go away if we don't take some action that's being requested here tonight.
That's absolutely right.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Mr. Bishop, anyone? Okay. Supervisor Lofton?
Mr. Chairman, with the explanation Mr. Bishop has given, I would move that we authorize the county administrator to work with VDOT to move those funds as requested by staff.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
The second, is there any discussion? Anyone? Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. All right, that will bring us to public hearing, 12-month outdoor festival permit request to Belgrove Plantation.
Mr. Chairman, this is a 12-month festival permit for Belle Grove, which would enable them to hold various events at the plantation without having to come in individually and acquire a festival permit for each individual event. Belle Grove, as you know, has held a number of events over the years that have been fairly successful without incident, so unless there are questions, that's up for the board's consideration.
Any questions, Mr. Tierney, anyone? How would the board like to handle this one?
Mr. Chairman, Belle Grove has been an excellent partner in holding these festivals and making sure that they go very well without any glitches. And so I would move that we approve the 12-month outdoor festival permit request of the Belle Grove Plantation.
Heard the motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. This is a public hearing. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. That's my fault, not yours. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this application for festival permit of Belgrove Plantation, Inc.? Anyone at all? I'm sorry.
I'm Kristen Lace. I'm the director at Belgrove Plantation. So I just want to thank you for your consideration of this festival permit. We have had a very successful year with events and value contributing to the economic development of the county through bringing people in for these special events. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to comment? Anyone? And we'll close the public comment portion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The 12-month outdoor festival permit request to Belgrove Plantation is approved. Bring us to a public hearing for proposed conveyance to Frederick County Sanitation Authority, doing business as Frederick Water, of an easement.
Mr. Chairman,
Terry.
in September, the Parks and Rec Commission met to consider a request from Frederick Water for an easement on approximately 3 acres and access to that 3 acres to accommodate a water tank. At your meeting in October, because this is conveyance of a right to public property, a public hearing is required. So in October, you scheduled the public hearing for this evening. So that is what brings us to this evening.
All right, any questions, Mr. Tierney, anyone? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this proposed easement? Yes, sir. You'd have your name, magisterial district, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please, sir.
Yes, sir. My name's Andy Wright. I'm in the Black Creek District. That's where I live. I'm also the plant manager at Carmoose in Winchester, and we've dealt many years with FCSA and Frederick County. So I'm here kind of as a private citizen and put my plant manager hat on a little bit too, and a representative of Carmoose. First of all, a little bit about me. I've lived in the valley all my life, been with Carmoose for 20 years. I actually started as an electrician, so I've had a very good career there, a great company to work for. We at Carmoose have done a lot for this community. We've done fishing tournaments. Just last summer, raised $6,000 for a young lady in need in Middletown. We sponsor a lot of events. We've provided land at no charge for baseball fields, county convenience sites, and we've also provided water for the county. As a citizen, I would recommend we do not approve this. Placing a 200-foot water tower with 1 million gallons of water 200 foot in the air in the Clearbrook Park, I do not think is in the best interest of the citizens of Frederick County. I can't understand why we would place this monster in a park where we have, quote, such beautiful trees, as one member of this board described that park to me at one of the recent meetings we've had with this board, or members of this board. However, as a plant manager, I'll say this, it's your land, do what you wish, so as Carmoose's stance, it's fine. Putting my plant manager hat on, I will say this, I think this water tower is the beginning of an extremely flawed plan known as the Opequon Water Supply Plan. The payment that Carmoose gets from water has been cited in every report in the newspaper as one of the driving factors to implement this plan, which this water tower is a part of. So I'd like to state some facts. The facts is FCSA pays Carmoose $1.55 per 1,000 gallons of water. Avoiding this payment has always been noted as one of the driving factors, as the reason the county wants to do this new plan. So let's put that in perspective. The average person takes about 20 gallons to take a shower. So Carmoose gets 3 cents for one shower. That's 96 cents a month. This project started out in 2016 as a $10 million project. October 28th of 16, it was listed on the FCSA website as $20 million. A day later, Mr. Lawrence was quoted in the Winchester Star with an estimate that ranged between 10 and 30 million. 1 week later, FCSA board approved $15 million. On March 31st of 17, Mr. Lawrence was again quoted in an article in Star that it would cost, $20 million to get started. Here's a fact. In Fluvanna County, a similar system, if you don't mind, can I
Go ahead and
continue?
complete, yes, sir.
In Fluvanna County, a similar system was initially estimated at $40 to $45 million. The actual cost for that project was $100 million. Very similar system. I was a project manager for Carmoose for many years. I did a lot of projects up to $125 million. I ran them. Project Management Institute says you got to spend 10% on engineering to get an estimate you got to spend 75% of your engineering money for the project to get an estimate, plus or minus 10%, which means on a $30 million project, the engineering would be $3 million. 75% of that needs to be spent according to the project management guidelines in order to even get an estimate, plus or minus 10%. I can tell you for a fact that most every project I've done has been 10% engineering. So, have we spent $2 million in engineering on this project to really understand what it's going to cost? I don't think so. So back to my 3 cents thing, with the unknown cost, we haven't really done any engineering. Do we really want to approve this water tower as the start of a project for which we don't know the cost to save the community members in Frederick County 3 cents to take a shower? Because that's what it amounts to. The most blatant flaw in this whole program is the fact that the water's not in the Opechan Creek. It's just not there. There's a study on the DEQ website, 69 years of stream data, anybody can get it, that shows that even in an extremely high flow year, when the stream is averaging 12.38 per cubic feet per second of water flow, the months of June through October would not allow for the 8 million gallons of water draw that's being proposed. It's a fact. It's data. In a more normal year, 75%, and what they call the 75% percentile, there would only be 2 months out of the year where the 8 million gallons is there to withdraw. And I don't know if, we see it because we get things from DEQ all the time. Just a few months ago, we got a severe water restriction. During those times, there's no water there to withdraw. It's just not there. And that data is not data that me or Carmoose is making up. That is readily available data that anybody can look up on the DEQ website, 69 years of it. Lastly, really looking into this, and I want to say that, Carmoose, we're not in the business to sell water to Frederick County. We do it because we have it. We have a good, clean supply. Water's not free. You go to the gas station and you buy a bottle of water off the shelf, you pay more for that bottle of water than you do for the gallon of gas you put in your car. That's a fact. Water's not free. Water's not free because look at the lawsuit that FCSA is in right now in Stevens City because the thought is water's free, but it's not. It's not free. Lastly, again, as a project manager and doing a lot of engineering over the years, I was really taken aback when I read the agenda tonight, and going back to that 10% rule. Let's say it's projects, $40 million, $30 million. That means $3 million is going to be spent on engineering. So I have to ask the question. This is as a private citizen of Frederick County. How do we go about selecting who's doing the engineering for these projects? Because the engineering company that's in your package that did this is owned by the chairman of the board of the FCSA. And I don't think that's right for the citizens of Frederick County. I think that's really bad optics, folks. So,
You need to conclude, sir.
excuse me?
You need to conclude.
So I would ask you to please look at the facts. Do not approve this as the beginning of this slippery slope that we're about to go down. If we can find a good water source, Carmoose is all in support. Great. Stop taking water for us. We're good. We'll help you. No problem. But let's don't begin the execution of this severely flawed plan. I do have, if you're interested.
You need to conclude, sir.
Okay. I do have a handout, myth versus fact. These are facts, if you would like to look, and a little handout on the issue. So I'll leave these here, or?
Mr. Tibbs?
Okay. And I have one copy for each. So thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Dayton.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment? Anyone at all? Thank you, sir.
Ron Madigan, I'm on the Parks and Rec Commission. We met with Eric, and he told us what he needed to do this project out there, and he knows more about than what I do. But they're going to take the one tower down that's there and build a new one. So we looked at it like we were good. It's kind of a swap one for the other. And we have no plans for that land on the other end down there. It's kind of swampy and wet and stuff like that. And of course, we all know they're going to build some ball fields, and we're going to gain some space there. And we just thought that we were all one community and we should work together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to comment concerning this proposed conveyance? Anyone? Then we'll close the public comment portion. How would the board like to handle this one?
I'd move for approval of the item as presented on our agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And the second, further discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lofton.
if I may, to Mr. White's comments, we're approving an easement. We don't approve the projects that that Frederick Water does. So I just want them to understand that we're not approving a water tank. We're approving an easement for to have options where they can build their water system. That's my view of it.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Fisher.
as your liaison to Frederick Water, just a couple things that, it's not me, it's coming from Frederick Water. They are trying to approach this from multiple sources, wells, quarries, stream flow, to provide adequate water on an annual basis. I've heard them mention that for the long-term growth of the county, that the current supply from the Carmuse sources is insufficient. Those are my comments as the liaison, but I will issue another comment here that I find interesting, that an employee of Carmuse is commenting about this due to the fact they're going to lose income, and that strikes me as being a little bit on the edge there, and I just have to point that out.
Further discussion, anyone? All right. The motion is to approve the easement. Supervisor Ewing.
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn.
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher.
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton.
Aye.
Supervisor Wells.
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. That'll bring us to proposed amendments to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 155, Taxation, Senior Citizens and Disabled Persons Exemptions and Deferrals.
I have that item, Mr.
William.
Chairman. These are technical amendments in large part. The Finance Committee, over the past few months, had studied or done a review of the deferral and exemption program, and while the committee did not recommend any substantive changes to the program, in the process of the review, I did identify, along with the Commissioner of the Revenue's Office, some technical updates that were needed to the ordinance, mostly along two lines. One is that under state law, affidavits or written statements are allowed to be submitted, and the other primary change is that the eligibility for the program is somewhat expanded under state law from what it originally was. Originally, it was simply that the person themselves had to qualify, and now it's been expanded to allow trusts for estate planning purposes and whatnot for people to still qualify for the program while still protecting their assets. So those are the nature of the changes. Again, no substantive changes intended. And this is, I can answer any questions, and this is a public hearing item.
Questions, Mr. Williams? Anyone? I do note that Commissioner Murphy is with us, if anyone had questions of her. Are there any? We appreciate her being here and being with us. So this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning these proposed changes to Code Section 155? Anyone at all? Then we'll close the public comment portion. Discussion recommendation.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Slaughter.
I make a motion that we approve the amendments to the Frederick County Code, Chapter 155, Taxation, Article 3, as presented.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Is there further discussion? Anyone? Hearing none. Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. All right, that'll bring us to a public hearing. Proposed dissolution and termination of Russell 150 Community Development Authority. Who's the winner?
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Tierney.
I'll start. I may look for help.
Yes, sir.
The Board of Supervisors created the Russell 150 Community Development Authority, or CDA, back in 2005. The purpose of the CDA was a financing mechanism to provide for improvements within the development known as the Russell 150. There was bonds issued in the amount of $21 million. The financing was to be paid for through a tax on properties contained within the development. That development never came to fruition, and in 2016, the landowner paid off the bonds that had been issued. Later in that same year, the Community Development Authority met and basically passed a resolution declaring the purpose for which they were created to be essentially no longer applicable. So the formality of this process is that because the CDA was created by the board is the one that has to essentially dissolve it. The nature of this process is such that a public hearing is required before you do that. If there's questions on the details, both Mr. Tibbs and Mr. Williams are more familiar with the intricacies of this and can help me if need be.
Questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Dunn?
so, Mr. Tierney, and you may defer, but my understanding is that in June of 2014, there was a situation in which the treasurer said that there's $14 million from $21 million. Then in November of 2016, there's approximately $5.9 million. And then in December, the following day, that was absolved. So the question to you as the county administrator is there any county money involved in this? Or did any county employee, board member, et cetera, have any benefit on this? Or is this simply a private transaction between two parties in which one party may or may not owe the other party?
There's no public money in this transaction at all. The CDA was an authority that was created to oversee it. The treasurer of the county would have collected the taxes that were owed that would have in turn paid off the bonds. Thus, that was the purpose of the CDA, but there was no public money, no public involvement in any way other than the administration of that authority.
So therefore, any default on those bonds or any difference between the 5.3 and 0, or the 5.3 and the 5.9 is a private party transaction, not a public party involvement. Is that correct? To the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my knowledge, right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If it helps, the bondholder ended up being the property owner as well, so they were dealing with themselves.
I understand that.
Thank you, sir.
I just want to
Any
have
other
this.
questions? Anyone? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to comment concerning this proposed termination of the Russell 150 Authority? Anyone at all? Seeing no one, we'll close the public comment portion. Would the board like to handle this one?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the dissolution of the Russell 150 CDA as outlined by County Administrator Mr. Tierney.
Heard a motion to approve the dissolution. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
The second, is there any discussion? Dare say we won't have to wrestle with one of these again. 12 years of misery.
Amen.
All right, are we ready? Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. Brings us to Master Development Plan 0517. Mr. Klein.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors. This is a proposal to develop 3.25 acres of land zoned RP, Residential Performance District, into 13 single-family detached age-restricted units. This master development plan also includes 0.64 acres of right-of-way for improvements along the property frontage for Cincinnati Road. This property is generally located west of Channing Drive and north of Cincinnati Road, and the applicant, as part of this master development plan, is seeking a waiver from the Board of Supervisors of the requirements for a community center. Here's an overview of the properties as part of this application. You have Cincinnati Road to the south, Channing Drive to the east, Parkwood Circle here. These properties were rezoned back in 2007 with rezoning application 11-06, which rezoned 3.25 acres of property from the RA Rural Areas Zoning District to the RP Residential Performance Zoning District with proffers. The properties were again modified in 2015 as part of rezoning application 0415, which amended the approved proffers to change the proposed residential uses to age-restricted and to reduce the monetary contributions for the proffered improvements. As part of this master development plan, access to the site will be provided from Cincinnati Road, and future interparcel access will be provided to the west of the properties, and a turnaround is also provided internally for residents. Sidewalks will be included on either side of the internal street for pedestrian connectivity within the development, and a 10-foot multi-use trail will be provided along the property frontage on Cincinnati Road. The right-of-way for the future condition of Cincinnati Road as a 4-lane roadway is also being reserved as part of this master development plan. Again, here's an overview of the site. You have your property frontage reservation for Cincinnati Road improvements along with the 10-foot multi-use trail. You have your internal street network with a turnaround provided for the residents, and you have your future interparcel connection to the west included here as well. Staff also notes that the applicant is providing open space as required by the zoning ordinance and has included a recreational amenity in the form of a gazebo here. A waiver from the community center requirement is also being sought as part of this master development plan, as this proposed subdivision contains less than 25 lots. The applicant will provide an equivalent recreational value within the development. The master development plan for Abrams Chase is generally consistent with the requirements of our zoning ordinance, and this master development plan is in conformance with the proffers and generalized development plan, or GDP, for the approved rezoning 04-15. The Planning Commission discussed this item on November the 1st and recommended approval of the waiver request. The master development plan is presented this evening for information, and staff is seeking an action by the Board of Supervisors on the request for a waiver of the community center requirement. The applicant representative and the applicant are here this evening as well, and we'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Klein? Anyone? Supervisor Loft.
Do we have an approximate cost of a community center so we can find out if we're really getting the comparable recreational amenities that they're planning instead of that?
I will defer to the applicant to give an estimation of the cost on the recreational value. Per our zoning ordinance, when a waiver is being sought for a community center requirement, they must demonstrate that they can provide an equivalent value based on the number of units and the recreational amenities calculations. And one of their options is to provide a gazebo or outdoor pavilion, which this applicant intends to provide. They also, at the time that the lots are constructed, intend to work with the owners of that, or the property owners who purchase into that community, to provide an additional amenity based on what they would like to see, whether that's outdoor picnic tables, another outdoor pavilion type use, or some other type of facility.
Okay.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, are the equivalents, the equivalent in dollars, or there was the discussion on what was the definition of equivalent?
It's not, it would not be an equivalent as far as dollars, but it would be an equivalent type in terms of use. Again, this is a smaller infill type subdivision. And again, when it contains less than 25 lots, our zoning ordinance allows for that waiver. Again, that's a process that goes through the board. So as far as dollars, it's not an equivalent, but as far as value, based on how it's calculated in our zoning ordinance, it's equivalent in that respect.
Okay.
Yes.
In a previous discussion, there has been discussion with VDOT on potentially putting in some type of divider on Senseney Road. Is that, and I've been told that that no longer is part of this project. Is that true, not true, or do you not know, sir?
That is true. As part of our review agency comments in the review of the master development plan, the applicant sought and received a waiver from VDOT for the requirement to provide island separation between the eastbound and westbound lanes of Cincinnati Road.
So there's no island separation right now on Cincinnati, nor is there any planned island separation until that whole road is completed. Is that correct?
You are correct, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions, Mr. Klein? Anyone? All right. Is there anything that you folks would like to add?
Good evening. I'm John Lewis with Painter Lewis. I don't have much to add, although on your question about the equivalent, Matthew Hott and I have discussed this on numerous occasions, and when we look for equivalent recreational units, he gave a figure of $32,500 per unit. I hope I'm not getting him in trouble. So we have 13 lots. It's, you do the math, we need to spend about $17,000, which we'll easily do on the pavilion. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any other questions of Mr. Lewis? Anyone?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Slaughter.
when I look at your proposal, you're asking for 13 single-family dwellings that would potentially have some effect with the community center that you're proposing. So nothing has been built there that is already, they already have an expectation that this community center is going to be of
No, nothing's
any
been built there.
particular, okay. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Questions of Mr. Lewis? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So the MDP is approved by staff. You're being asked to make a decision about the waiver request on the community center. Supervisor Dunn.
I'll pass. It was not germane to this, so I'll pass.
Okay. So how would the board like to handle this request?
I'll make a motion to approve, sir.
It's a motion to approve the waiver. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
And the second. Is there any discussion? Supervisor Slaughter?
Aye.
Supervisor Wells?
Aye.
Supervisor Lofton?
Aye.
Supervisor Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Dunn?
Aye.
Supervisor Ewing?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and the motion carries. So I think that brings us to board liaison reports. Are there any? Hearing none, that'll bring us to citizen comments. If anyone would like to bring anything at all to the board, I'd ask you to come forward. Seeing none, bring us to Board of Supervisors comments.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Lofton.
if I may, probably all of us get comments, questions, and concerns about the road that you live on. Maybe it's condition, maybe it's use, too much traffic, too much speeding. And there seem to be a lot of questions about transportation. I know I've gotten some just recently about all the congestion in certain areas. So I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention that on Tuesday, December 5th, we will have our third annual Transportation Forum, which we're going to discuss transportation throughout Frederick County. So this is a citizen's opportunity to come in and speak to county staff. Supervisors will be here. Thank you, Mr. Tyler. VDOT will be here. We'll have legislators here. We'll have representatives representing the spectrum of the people that deal with transportation issues in Frederick County. So I just want to make a note of that and make everyone aware that this is your opportunity to come in and hopefully find the answers to your questions or hear someone that can talk about your concerns and maybe get those addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to jump on the bandwagon on that. I've gotten a lot of calls recently, several locations in Opequon District, like you say, in Speeding, some folks that have gravel roads that would like to have them paved and so forth and so on. This is an excellent opportunity, and I plan to contact a lot of individuals and pass this word on. So please get the word out. This is a great chance, great opportunity to meet all the representatives and get your road out in the public eye so that things can be changed or at least looked at. So thank you very much, Gary, for bringing that up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would want
Supervisor
them to feel unique. I've got about 500 residents that has a change request for Route 50, so I just put the plug in. To those that's listening, they would like to have a change out there,
We
too.
exclude those, don't we?
Yeah, I think you have excluded Gainsborough District, I'm not
That
sure.
one does go back quite a ways. All right, anyone else? Vice Chairman Fisher.
Move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll stand adjourned. We thank everyone for their time, attendance, their contributions.